part 2 of how I am developing a drinkware product and trying to take it to market and get it sold. And I'm going to take you along the way and all the steps that I took to get to where I'm at today and along the process, so that if you have an idea, you can kind of understand the process and what it's going to look like. So I had just spoken to my uncle about, should I go with one of these companies? This is what they're offering. They can walk me through the process. And he says, I tell them how much it is. He's like, that seems pretty steep to me. You don't want to be spending any of your own money, he said. You don't want to be spending any of your own money on investing in this. He said, finding investors is something you're going to do down the line, but out the gate, you want to keep your costs as low as possible. So he said, I would recommend calling up a university in your area, talking to their engineering department, and seeing if they have a apprenticeship program where you can hire an engineering student for a nominal fee. They can utilize the equipment that's at the university and create a prototype for you. Because right now you're just looking for a rough prototype. You need to have a physical product in hand that isn't necessarily what you're going to be mass producing, but is something that can give an investor or somebody that you work with, a manufacturer, a good idea of where you're going. They can also do the testing on your product that is needed, so they can determine the right materials to use, the right measurements, how the product works under temperature changes, yada, yada, yada. They can do all of that testing. So I said, thank you, Uncle. I will do that. It took me a couple months to actually implement his advice, which is another thing I'm going to say. When you get advice from people, sit on it, see how it feels in your body, see if it's actually the direction you want to go down. Is it a full embodied yes? Do you have curiosity around it? Of course, then move forward with it. It doesn't mean you're not going to have fear. Okay, fear is a very natural part of building a product and building a business. But you move through the fear, and sometimes it takes you a few months, maybe even years, to move through the fear, to work through the fear. Creation is a healing process. Creation requires that you heal. It requires that you look at your limiting beliefs and you determine what they are. And I'm going to tell you right now, when you're creating, it's going to bring all those up to the surface, because it's going to make you face your fears. So I had to spend, a month or so kind of thinking about what he said, thinking about his advice, and then deciding which direction I wanted to go in and focusing on the limiting beliefs that were maybe holding me back. So I sent an email out to every single university within a 60-mile span of where I live. Now, I live in Southern California, so there are a myriad of universities in Southern California, private and public. We have USC, UCLA, UCI, UCSD, San Diego State, the University of San Diego. Bet that I went online and I figured out the engineering departments for all of these schools, and I reached out to them and I sent them an email. This would be even faster with ChatGPT. I didn't do any of this with ChatGPT because it was before it became sort of like a household tool. But you could literally ask ChatGPT, hey, give me the name and contact email for all of the engineering departments of universities, public and private, within a 60-mile radius of my home. ChatGPT will give you and even draft emails for you if you're not a big grammar person, to send to people in these different departments. So I did that and I waited. It was a waiting game. I put several fishing lines out into the water, and then I sat back and I waited. This is another part of building a business that you're going to find yourself in. You are going to send out, like a fisherman, multiple lures into the water and then see what sticks. See what the universe brings to you. See who contacts you back. And then that will direct you into your next move or down your next path. So I sent out probably 25, 30. I got a couple back that were like, we can help you, but I don't know if you're necessarily a good fit for our program, and that's fine. I didn't get deterred. I just was delusional in my thinking that this feels right. I think I'm going to find somebody. I think I'm going to find a school that wants to work with me. And I was right. I was right. So whether the chicken came before the egg, whether it was the delusion that brought it in, or it was my intuition knowing it was going to come in, I knew somebody was going to reach out to me and I was going to get a deal with one of these universities. Chico State, which is in Northern California, and it's where I grew up, they reached out to me and said, hey, we actually can't help you, but another department within the university can. They're starting a fledgling program where they want to work with entrepreneurs and people developing products. We'll send you to them. So they did. They referred me over to their sister department on campus. This is another thing you're going to see when you're starting a business, okay, or doing anything new, starting something, creating something from scratch. You're going to see synchronicities along the path that are going to direct you. And because Chico State was a university that was very close to where I grew up, it was from Northern California, I now live in Southern California, it felt familiar to me. I looked at that as a synchronicity that I should go with Chico State. I had a few other options. I had a few other universities bite and say, hey, we'd love to work with you. But I decided to go with Chico State because of that synchronicity. And that's another thing that can help you on your path to know which step to take. You're never going to know multiple steps ahead. You're never going to have the whole thing mapped out. You're never going to have your blueprint completely mapped out. First, I'm going to do A, then I'm going to do B, then next I'm going to do C. You will not have that. When you're starting something new, you're going step by step and you're literally looking to the next right thing. What's the next right step? And synchronicities are a great way to know what that next right step is. So I contact Chico State, I get in touch with them, I tell them what I want. And I went through a 9-10 month process with them where we developed a prototype. They had an entire team in their department working on this project, and I took some video of one of our Zoom calls, so I'm going to show that right now. And in time, we came up with a prototype together. It was so exciting to have these weekly meetings with my entire team and to see something that I conceptualized in my mind actually become a tangible product that you could touch. They sent me multiple prototypes along the way, and they did a bunch of testing where they froze water in containers and then used my product on different temperature water to see how it worked. And I'm telling you, they did the most to product review, to test it, to make it a solid product. We went down a few different design options and we really settled on the one that tested the best. And it wasn't the design that I went in with. I went in with a rudimentary prototype that I created with something I already had, a soldering iron, a bunch of materials around my house, and I gave that to them when we first started working together. This was my idea, and it doesn't have to be anything special when you first work on your first initial prototype. It's just something to give them an indication as to where you're going. It can be very rough. So I gave that to them in the very beginning, and what they came up with and we came up with together, I should say, was very different. I mean, it was similar in some ways, but it wasn't what I was thinking. And I had to be open-minded and I had to be fluid with the process of creating this. And what I came up with at the end of this process was really the best product and the best result. And it stood up in testing.